Hi everybody. You might be asking, why do I have all these soldering guns sitting on my bench? Well, it's actually, I found out something interesting today and I thought I would just share it with all of you, so I got these out to kind of show you what's going on. So any of you who have been in electronics for a really long time probably know what these are, and you probably have the same the same affinity for these that I do. These are just some of my favorite pieces of soldering gear out there, especially when working with old tube gear and things like that, larger terminals and things. Nothing's better than these. They're my favorite. And the venerable Weller 8200 is probably one of the most popular, most commonly built soldering gun ever made. And this one here, this original one, I got many years ago, and it was old and used when I got it. And I have had it forever, and I still use it all the time, and I still love it. And in addition, I purchased this one, and you can see it's a little different. It has the spring strain relief on it. Some of the older ones did not. Some of these ones did. Notice how this one just has like the chamfer around it. This is the earlier model, I believe. And then there's these ones that had the spring strain relief. But other than that, they're pretty much the same. And then they had the later models, the larger model. And I forget what this one's called. This one's the D550, but there was also one from this era that was the larger size. And this one's a higher wattage, gets hotter. And this red one is a modern one that you can still buy at most hardware stores. And this is the one I keep in my truck for work. If I have to solder a larger terminal or something in a machine, this is the one that I carry with me and use. But really, the main thing this is about is that all of these irons are dual heat. So if you listen to this, you can put the microphone. So first position, second position. See that? And it's a two-position switch because this actually has two wattages. It can be either 100 watts or 140 watts. Now this one doesn't have the click. It's just kind of a mushy switch. A lot cheaper built than these. But actually this plastic case is probably more durable than the old Bakelite. But of course these have been around forever. But this is also a dual heat. I think it's also 100 and 140 watt. And this one has the little LED headlights in it. These ones have the old incandescent. And believe it or not, these bulbs operate off of the voltage drop across the terminals here. So when this thing's open circuit voltage, it's a few volts, and actually it's a higher voltage. These are only like a 1 or 2 volt bulb, something like that. And if the tip doesn't have a tight connection on it, what will happen is, because you'll develop resistance on this, the voltage will go up. And since this bulb is actually right across these two terminals, it will have a higher voltage and it will burn the filament out on the bulb. So when you don't have tight terminals on this, your bulb can burn out. So when these bulbs burn out, that's quite often why it happens. These have to be tight in order to get maximum heat from this. It will majorly affect it. They're all like that. These older ones had these nuts. So you would put the tip through the center like that. You would bend it into an L shape and then kind of hook it through these two holes, you can see, and then you'd use a little wrench and tighten those down on it. And it's kind of awkward to do, but once you get it in there, they hold pretty well. The later models went to just a side set screw, and those work well also, but these kind of strip out pretty easily. And you can see, since this is a little later model, this one's probably only about 10 years old or so, it has the same thing. But that's not really what I'm going to talk about in this video. If you notice, this one says 100 and 140 watts. This one says 100 and 140 watts. This one says 260 and 200 watts. And this one doesn't say anything. It doesn't anywhere tell you, except on the packaging when you purchase it. It doesn't tell you the wattage. But it is a 140 and a 100 watt. But there's something I want you to pay attention to. I never realized this. On this one, so if we take our watt meter and plug this in to the watt meter, and we set it to watts, okay, if I click this to first position, you can see it's about 100, 120 watts, 100 watts. It keeps kind of, as the tip heats up, this will drop. If I squeeze it the whole way, it goes up. So first position is your 100 watt position, and second position is your 140 watts. So this is low and this is high. Okay? Now, if I plug this one in, this is the later model, and I do the same test. I go to first position, which is just mushy. You can see it's at high temperature, and if I go to second position, it drops down to low temperature. So they're backwards. They've switched the switches, so they're backwards. How about that? So the old model, the original ones, first position was low temperature and second position is high temperature. On the later models, even this one, which is about 10 years old now, if you notice, once again, 260, 200, notice this one, 100, 240, so see how they're in order? So the first position is the high one on this too. So if we plug this in, so it says it, but at some point in time, so look, first position, second position. See that? So at some point in time, in the manufacturing of their soldering irons, they switched the first position and second position for high and low. And I always wondered about that. It's interesting. So, because normally I always used to, go all the way down to get it to heat up quickly and then let off if I'm going to be on it for a little bit. And I was doing that with this one, and I was like, wait a minute, something's not right at work, So it's just something interesting about these things. These are just fascinating, simple but fascinating devices. I mean, all this really is a transformer. So you have your 110 volt primary winding, and your secondary is just a really thick piece of copper going around here connecting to these two rods. So it's really one turn, so it's only like 1 or 2 volts. That's it. And but it's really high current. So I just thought that would be interesting, and I don't know, maybe some of you knew this. I didn't. But I just thought it was fascinating. So keep that in mind. If you buy an old one of these on eBay or something, or you buy a brand new one at the hardware store, just be aware that the switches work backwards from one another. All right, that's about it. We have some other projects coming up, and I'll be bringing those out, I don't know, in the next week or two. But anyway, until then, I wish you all peace, joy, happiness, and good health in your lives, and, well, happy soldering.